Greetings dear viewers of Uzreport World, you are watching interview program. This month, the country manager of World Bank for Uzbekistan, Mr. Marco Mantovanelli, completed his mission. We have invited him to talk about the experience of working in Uzbekistan and the challenges and opportunities related to the country's transition to an inclusive market economy and how the World Bank assists the government in this process. Greetings, Mr. Marco. You are welcome to our TV channel, Uzreport. So I want to congratulate for the 4 years spending time here, for the successful and productive 4 years. Before starting our conversation with the operations of the World Bank, I want to ask you, please share some impressions about the social, economic and business-related changes that you witnessed during these times. And could you also tell that which of those had a great implications in the country's development?
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to share some time discussing Uzbekistan. Indeed, 4 years that came to an end very fast because they were very busy for me. The country has changed quite a lot in this period. I could see it. I would maybe give you a few examples of what struck me. Examples of changes in which the World Bank was also involved. On the side of improving prosperity in general, which is a priority for the World Bank, when I came here, there was still an internationally enforced ban on Uzbekistan cotton, and that was linked to the legacy of forced labor in the cotton fields. That was one of the largest forced labor schemes in the world, right? 2 million children, half a million of adults working every year in the fields. So in 2022, this ban was lifted, and now cotton from Uzbekistan can be exported, not just as raw cotton, but also in the form of textile value added. This has been a major change. We contributed to that. The World Bank helped the government address the root causes of the situation, which was the legacy of the agriculture production with fixed quotas, fixed prices, etc. So we work on modernizing agriculture and offering other alternatives to farmers, including horticulture. The second one that I would put under people, which is another of our priorities, is the impressive increased coverage of early childhood education, so preschool education, and also university education. These were, when I joined here in 2020, some very low rates. Uzbekistan in 2017, if I remember correctly, less than 30% of children had access to early childhood education. Today is more than 70%. So you're well on the way to reach 100%. We also supported that milestone. And why do we think it's important? Because we know that investing in early childhood education has the highest return. Individually, for the person, everybody becomes a better learner throughout life, so it improves its possibility of better jobs, of better but also collectively, because you have individuals that contribute more to society. So very proud of what Uzbekistan has done in this area, and we hope to continue to assist Uzbekistan reach 100% coverage.
Uzbekistan has achieved a lot with the World Bank support on the agriculture, on the energy. So let's continue our conversation. Can you please elaborate on the bank's country program in Uzbekistan, how it's evolved, and what are the key areas of bilateral cooperation?
All right. In Uzbekistan, I'll give you a number. In 2016, I believe our portfolio, meaning approved projects under implementation, was less than $2 billion. Today is above $6 billion, so it has tripled. This gives you a magnitude of the investments that we are supporting here, both on the policy side, but pure hard investment in infrastructure, in schools, in irrigation schemes, etc. That has come with a huge effort of policy dialogue and technical assistance. This is actually the things that keeps us busiest. Producing policy notes, input, analysis that helps the government make informed decisions. These transitions from a state-controlled economy to a market economy is not easy. The world is changing around Uzbekistan. So policymakers need to have options and say what does work, what doesn't work, and then adapt these options to Uzbekistan. So we produce a lot of that. So we are particularly proud that we can be a force for change. We do not always agree with the government, but we agree to have a frank discussion where we put everything on the table. And so far, this has been a very productive partnership where most of our recommendations ended up being implemented.
So we both know that Uzbekistan is implementing an ambitious agenda designed to reduce the poverty, to reach the rank of upper middle income countries and boost the prosperity of the citizens and achieve other goals outlined in the country's development strategy until 2030. So in your opinion, what of the sectors should be focused more?
Let me start from the positive and then I move to the challenges. On the positive side, Uzbekistan experienced a quite dramatic transformation that is producing results. Poverty, we look at different data, national poverty line or international comparison, it's going down. The national poverty line moved to 17, to 14, to 11% now in the span of three years. But even if you look at comparing the poverty line for upper middle income country, and Uzbekistan is not yet there, upper, there's been a dramatic drop from 2015, about 36%, to now 17%. We use for this poverty line $6.25 per capita per day. I don't want to complicate the explanation, but the message is it's moving positively. Growth, economic growth, has been maintained even during COVID. So some of this difficult transformation is beginning to produce results. What is the challenge? What is left to be done? Is to take it to the other side of the river permanently. You know, the president keeps saying no coming back on the reforms. That's great, but there is still some road to fully move to an economy that is market-based, inclusive, and sustainable. There I see a few remaining challenges. One is on the structure of economic growth, the legacy of the past. You still have a very large and dominant public sector. There's nothing bad with the public sector, as long as it is operating efficiently, effectively, and it doesn't compete unfairly with the private sector. We saw solid economic growth. Now you need an economic growth that produces more jobs. And to do that, you need more private sector there. So the agenda for the future, which is difficult, we recognize it, but very important, is to rethink the role of the state in the economy. State-owned enterprises, do you need them wherever they are? In some sectors, you can have competition and private sector can deliver those services. In other areas, you may want to keep a state present, but you need an SOE that is efficient, effective, and maximize value for money. Otherwise, they tend to absorb public resources and not produce the services or the growth or the jobs. You need a lot of jobs. You're a young country growing. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Finally, the last challenge, the planet. I mentioned water. We know that climate change affects this region and Uzbekistan. We know that climate change affects disproportionately poor people in rural areas. It's something that needs to be addressed, both as a challenge but also as an opportunity. There are jobs behind a green economy. So transforming and thinking about future investment in light of climate change is smart because you protect yourself from the change, but also you create new opportunity and new jobs.
Thank you for a great explanation. So for 30 years, Uzbekistan has been trying to be a member country of the WTO, World Trade Organization. And for the last 2 years, the process is being accelerated. And recently, the Director General of the WTO also paid a visit to the country and attended some conferences here, and our TV channel also covered this process. And I also noticed that the representatives from the World Bank were also active during the conferences and supporting the country to the path of the WTO accession. So what are the benefits it could bring and why it's important for the country to join the WTO?
Why we think it's an important agenda? Well, I don't think I need to explain to the Uzbek people the importance of trade. You have it in your DNA. You are the Silk Road. You have been trading since centuries ago. Trade brings benefits. Trade brings economic benefits, brings also innovation. In Europe, we didn't know what silk was. We didn't know what gunpowder was. It all came from the east to the west along the Silk Road. So those are innovations, right, that transformed economies very far away. So I think you have a deep understanding of that. WTO accession fundamentally is that. It's joining, opening up your economy in a fair way that also protects you. So you lower your barriers at entry, joining this club, but in a way that protects you. You cannot be discriminated. Other members cannot discriminate with imposing undue restriction on your trade. There is an economic value of this. We have calculated that during the first year after accession to the WTO, Uzbekistan economy could grow by an extra 2 percentage points per year, so 10 percentage points total in the first 5 years. Just economic growth for improved exchanges, mostly driven by your services sector. Your services are still developing, digital services, tourism, logistics. These have great potentials for growth and jobs under the WTO. So there is all that, the trade and the protection, very critical for a double landlocked country. You need alternatives. You cannot depend on one country or the other, or one neighbor or the other for your trade. You need to be diversified. You need to be back to your Silk Road high day. You trade with the world. This is the dream for Uzbekistan. I was very pleased, for example, to hear the advisor to the president, Ms. Saida, announce there the decree that has been approved by the president last week, which is beginning to curtail more forcibly the unfair competition of some SOEs to the private sector. You cannot join WTO if you have unbalanced level of competition. So that decree is beginning to make it more equal, right? So we may expect more private sector, more foreign direct investments coming to the economy. And this is the third big advantage, foreign direct investments.
So I want to move on to some personal questions, if you're okay with it.
Definitely.
You have spent 4 years here living and working in Uzbekistan. And could you please share some of the unforgettable moments, such as places you have visited or the people you have met?
Yes. Well, I had a very limited knowledge of Central Asia in general and Uzbekistan before I came here. I heard a lot about, the proverbial hospitality, friendliness of the people. But one thing is to read it and one thing is to live it. And I was blessed by many opportunities of engaging with people who had no idea who I was. I had no idea who they were, and in different. I like to bike, and since your roads are a bit challenging to ride, whenever I can, I take dirt roads in the countryside, and the amount of times I end up meeting farmers who offer me some food, some water, where I unfortunately have not learned a lot of neither Uzbek nor Russian, but I have some basics. And so having this conversation under the tree, eating some fruit that they gave, probably these are the best memories of my life. And definitely the best memory of being here.
So, Mr. Marco, what are the future professional plans? and who is going to be the next country manager for Uzbekistan?
Yes. Well, let me start with the last part. We are organized as World Bank in Central Asia around what we call a country management unit, which is headed by a director, a regional director, that currently sits in Almaty. Upon my departure on July 1st, this director, Tatiana Proskuriakova, will move to Tashkent. So our regional management team for Central Asia will be based in Tashkent. We will strengthen the team here because, of course, Tatiana will continue to maintain a regional focus and cannot be 100% on Uzbekistan. So we will have a number 2 that will take more the attention on Uzbekistan. This is the structure. But we recognize that both the size of the program, the client engagement, the size of the country, the population, etc., all made it rational for us to say, well, our regional team should be in Tashkent. We'll keep the Almaty office running, but it becomes more of a technical hub for the water energy nexus. Where I will go? Well, geographically, I'm going back to Washington, which is the headquarters of the World Bank, but I'm moving to global initiatives. Global initiatives are initiatives that kicked off under the leadership of the World Bank and other partners with a specific focus. I'm moving to a global managerial role in the Global Partnership for Education, which is a global initiatives of governments, international organizations, private sector, all focused on advancing the education agenda in developing countries around the world.
It was actually my last question. Thank you for this interview. Thank you for dedicating your time for our program. And we wish you great success with your future path.
Thank you very much. Kata Rahmat.